The second person, 32 years old, also attracted this rare type of leukemia. I went and visited him the other day. He has probably about, maybe if you count them, 300 hairs left on his beard from the chemotherapy. He was also admitted into the cancer institute or the cancer hospital because he had attracted a tiny virus which caused inflammation in his liver, and if he hadn't been there, 5 hours later he would have been dead. He is receiving a treatment worth $300,000. He said to me, I visited him, he said, it was a Friday evening and I had a little speech at the Preston Masjid, my usual Friday talks. I said, what would you like me to say to the people? He said, brother, he could barely talk, of course. He said, brother, tell the people to thank Allah for the blessings that they have, their health. And what he was trying to say was also in this country, and I have to say it, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed us to be here in Australia, besides all the other negativities, at least this. He said, if I was back, he's a Turkish brother, he said, if I was back in Turkey, brother, I couldn't afford this treatment. It's a $300,000 treatment. The government's paying for it. I would have been dead by now. I said to him, it's the same in Lebanon. You could be in a critical condition. If you can't pay, they'll leave you outside until you die. He said, it is Allah who put them here. It's not the Australian government, it's Allah. So tell them to thank Allah for what they have and stop whining. The third brother, he was a revert to Islam. Lebanese, used to be Christian and converted to Islam. Married a good sister. And he became very wealthy. Allah gave him lots of wealth, ya ikhwan. Lots of wealth. In fact, one day he came up to me and said, brother, I have $60,000 sitting aside. If you want, I can lend them to you and just pay me them in after 10 years if you like. Or if you know anybody, I'll lend them. Such a beautiful heart. One day he came to the masjid and hugged me after a while and he said, brother, I've got cancer. Leukemia. The cancer went away and then came back. And then for about 2 years I couldn't see him. In hospital. And finally they found a donor for him. And he got the bone marrow transplant. He had to stay in his house from memory 11 months. He wasn't allowed to leave his bedroom. Because if he did, he didn't have enough of his white blood cells to protect him against any virus or bacteria. He'd die within 5 hours. Subhanallah, you would think that he would move away from Allah. But subhanallah, the other day, his parents came in, and he kept on giving them da'wah for about 3 hours, constantly saying to them, Mum, Dad, if you don't become Muslim now, I will die a sad man. I don't want to leave this world knowing that you have disbelieved in Allah. I want you to be with me in Jannah, if you want to make me happy. And he doesn't care that he's going to leave the world. The only thing that will make him happy is that his parents embrace Islam. So the parents said something, and he went unconscious. The next day they brought the priest, and he started throwing holy water on them, baptizing them again. He said, in case they, because they, you see, they did kufr, in other words. In case they made kufr, they went into Islam. So he started baptizing them, make sure that everybody's still a Christian. I applaud these brothers and I got a really great lesson from them. I don't know if I can be the same if I was in their position, wallahi. Allahu a'lam. Brothers and sisters in Islam, inshallah, wrap it down with this final story. There was a young girl in Sri Lanka, young Anisa, who was only 5 years old. And we were trying to gather some money for her, for a treatment. And there are many like her. They brought us some photos of her. Young Anisa, she was born with her large intestine outside of her body. He was outside. And this young girl, Anisa, grew up, she looks healthy, you know, she plays and everything, but her internal organs are outside, and part of her liver is also outside of her body. And she's trying to get treatment, but in India, they couldn't, and they sort of had like a little net over it, sort of thing. Subhanallah, the Royal Children's Hospital here wanted to sort of bring her down and give her this treatment. But she passed away before she could come. Young Anisa, 5 years old. Her parents obviously felt grief. But let us thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has given us healthy children ourselves. How many children are born with problems in them and their parents go through grief? Thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for He has given you. The other day I visited a brother, young, healthy, wallahi al-azim, 20-something years old. Good swimmer, excellent swimmer. He dived off the platform, ended up in hospital completely paralyzed. Wallahi, we went and visited him. He said, brother, wallahi, I don't know how I became paralyzed. I just dived, and then suddenly I just found myself, I couldn't twist over. I was face down, and I can't breathe. I'm going to twist over. And I couldn't feel my body. People noticed and they brought him to hospital. He's trying to move his limbs like this. You should see him, subhanAllah, like a doll, like a puppet. And subhanAllah is coming nearer to Allah. And it's something amazing. I thanked Allah for every moment that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given me to feel each fingertip that I have, each nail that I have. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, never look at those who are less fortunate than you. Always look at never look at those who are more fortunate than you in life. Look at those who are less fortunate than you in life. This is better for you, he said, أَلَّا تَزْدَرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ, so that you will not be ungrateful for what Allah has already blessed you. You know this on television, this marketing world, it has placed a disease in us. This disease of want, not need, want. I've got to have that particular thing on television. Children today, spoiled. I've got to have that iPod. I've got to have that new PlayStation. I've got to have that. I've got to have that. I've got to have that. Women and men wailing, and we've got to have this. We've got to compete in that way. Look at so and so, what they have in their house. We should get like them. And families are splitting apart. Competition about worldly things. And they forget that there are people who are deprived of being able to even drink water in their day, who don't know whether they're going to survive till the next day, such as the tsunami in Indonesia. When I visited those orphans, wallahi, I cried night and day, drinking from filthy water. You should see where they're sleeping, wallahi. None of us here would if they had a cow, they wouldn't let their cow sleep there, where they're sleeping, but they couldn't do anything. And the orphans are happy running around, subhanAllah, orphans. Thanking Allah, praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give them blessings and help them. I finish it, my dear brothers and sisters, with a dua. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in English so everybody can understand. Allahumma, Ya Allah, we thank you for what you have blessed us with. For every breath that we breathe. For every eyesight that we have. For every day that you bring us back to life after death. Meaning sleeping. I ask you, O Allah, to forgive us for every moment we wailed and every moment we complained. I ask you, Ya Allah, for every person tonight who is sick or ill. And for any person who is in debt. For any person who is in hardship, to relieve them from their hardship, from their debt, from their illness and their sickness. I ask you, Ya Allah, subhanahu, whoever is in prison now, who is being oppressed, to relieve them from what they are in, and to save them, to make them better people. I ask you, Ya Allah, to unite our hearts, and to make us satisfied for what we have. Allahumma rizukna al-qana'a. Oh Allah, give us satisfaction. Allahumma habibna ila ta'atik. Oh Allah, make us love your worship. We ask you, Ya Allah, to make us never feel ungratitude towards your blessing. We ask you, Allah, to increase our blessings and to not make us hoardful, to not make us heedless of your ni'mah, and to not make us arrogant when you bring something to us. We ask you, Ya Allah, to not make us those who despair and grovel over things that have passed us, and not to be proud of the things that we have received. We ask you, Ya Allah, to make us generous, and to let us drink from the hands of the Prophet ﷺ on the day of judgment, and to unite us with those who donate from their wealth night and day, to make us one of those who are generous, to make us one of those who are thankful, to make us one of those who will be among those who will enter paradise without hisab or adhab, Ya Rabbil Alameen. You said, Ya Rabb, that the greatest occupants of heaven are the poor people. So, O Allah, give us that characteristic that they have, no matter if we are wealthy or poor, Ya Rabbil Alameen. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه هذا وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.